you tell us about this architect from New York?
Well, I tell you, from reading all the things that the people who worked for him had to say, and then seeing the way his home was, the disheveled nature of his home, and the violence of these crimes, I think what you're starting to see is that the profile that was put out by the FBI years ago was actually pretty correct. That he's very intelligent, but that his life, other than family, would be dedicated basically to fulfilling his sadistic fantasies. So what you see is somebody who lives a life out in the open one way, and as is typical with many serial killers, has this completely different aspect of his life that he does not want to get caught doing. And that's very important that people realize that somebody that's a Machiavellian type of personality, very smart but very deviant at the same time. These are people who think their way through the system, which this individual did, and their goal is to not get caught, but to continue to fulfill their fantasies. So they are in tremendous control around other people in society. I think we're seeing a perfect example of this.
Yeah, a lot of neighbors and people who knew him are coming out and talking about the type of person he is. Christopher, police announced Heuermann, he's tied to 3, possibly 4 of the murders. What about the other 7 bodies that were found? Do you think that he may have played a role in these murders? Do you believe that there may be even more victims than we know?
Yeah, well, good morning. Thanks for having me on, Allison. I don't know about being connected to the other 6 homicides or bodies that were discovered. It's possible, but for right now, I think they need to focus on what they have in front of them, which is a DNA connection. And I just want to say this, they're a long ways off from getting a conviction on this guy. And the fact that the district attorney is out there basically laying out the whole timeline, minute by minute, moment by moment, day by day, is really concerning to me, because I think that is going to cause a problem down the road. And I would really hope that he would stop talking about the case and just, start focusing on the case.
That's that interesting point. I haven't heard that yet. Jonathan, it's quite interesting how investigators, they were able to build their case. The reports say DNA was collected off of a pizza crust thrown out by him. Burner cell phones were collected. Talk to us more about this investigation, because this happened allegedly, 10 years ago.
First off, I want to say I agree with Christopher. I think it's become now for prosecutors, so they've always liked to talk because they are political. But I think in this case, when you have a brand new case and they're given a step-by-step playback, that does start to cause problems. And in Idaho, we saw the total opposite of that. They shut it down real quick. What I think is interesting, though, is that they found his DNA through a pizza box, which tells me that they did have DNA off of these bodies, which again would be kind of a sloppy mistake on the part of his when he was murdering these girls. I do believe, though, that now with DNA, the way it's played a part again in Idaho, where it wasn't him, but a person, the suspect, but a person that the suspect was related to. I think with this technology, as it continues to improve, they can get DNA off of a fingerprint, which most people don't realize is pretty amazing. I think you're going to start to see more and more of these type of serial killers that were a mystery in the past come to light, and that's going to be the downfall of the majority of these people.
Yeah, a lot of these cold cases, being reopened by, a lot of these police departments putting together a task force, and then now because of DNA and technology, they're able to go back and hopefully solve them. Christopher, it's not like Heuermann was off the grid. He was a successful architect living in plain sight, had a house in a nice neighborhood. How do you think he was able to get away with this for so long?
Well, I agree with Jonathan. I think he's a very intelligent person. By virtue of being an architect, that says a lot. I mean, they're not just handing out degrees for architecture, and I think he was very planned and calculated. I also want to talk just briefly about the DNA. The fact that they have a reference sample from the burlap bags, which has been openly discussed before, I'm not saying anything out of school, and the fact that they had to collect another sample as a comparative sample, there's a lot of ways you could go with that, and Jonathan knows it as well as I do. I'm not going to get into tradecraft or the cell phone analytics or the computer analytics, but I will say that this person is a very cold, calculated, and sadistic person, one way or the other. anyone that would look at child pornography is a sick individual, period. Whether he committed these crimes or not remains to be seen. But to be involved in looking at something like that, as disturbing as that, and I had to do that, unfortunately, in Iraq through the propaganda videos that were being populated throughout the internet, is very disturbing. And you don't just forget something like that.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a case that we'll be monitoring and letting our folks know about. Jonathan Gilliam, Christopher Srom, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate it. And
You got to have a great day.
You too.